know if
I can start.
Yeah.
Just to kick off the conversation.
Arseny just came here, so I would like to welcome
yeah, sure,
also
of course.
on the board. And sorry, Agata, please continue.
So yeah, you asked. I repeat the question. So you ask how the practice of archiving care contributes to rethinking present and future. So I think art itself cannot change the world. However, we like to think that. I mean, I'm speaking from my own perspective. But it is a tool that allows one to kind of contribute to the socio-political landscape in one's own view, and I think from my perspective, maybe not archiving per se, but like the notion of organizing, that it's also visible in every conversation and every presentation you showed today, and the notion of organizing, meaning like non-institutional organizing, self-organizing, and all this kind of like pirate style of building, to borrow the word from today's presentation, or pirate style of organizing local societies, of rethinking local identities, gender identities, etc., is something that basically, for me personally, is the most important notion I take from art, and I think that this is the most promising tool that we can transplant into other realms of reality, and that the fact that many art practitioners are trying to reorganize and trying to build projects that are based on organizing and creating some new sort of support structures, not only here in the Central and Eastern Europe, but like globally. This is a strong trend. It's not, I don't think it's only because this is where the money is from, but I think that this is actually coming from the need of many societies. It's something which is promising for both present and the future. And perhaps it cannot be used in the direct sense, but it's kind of like a grassroots movement from other social-political issues we face today.
If I may add something, that I also think that what is, for me, one of the coolest thing about the archives is that you're not creating the, how to say, statement. You're not creating something that you are like manifesting, like your own vision or whatever. You're creating some tool, instrument, database, whatever, which can be after reinterpreted by others. So basically you are creating some ground for other people to rethink, context it, and so on. And I really like the creative potential of the archives.
Maybe, yeah.
Jaro, yeah, sorry, you were speaking, but you're mute.
So sorry. Actually, I really like what Asha and Agata mentioned, that, and I'm thinking that from the position, because of course creating some structure which like, for example, secondary archive. It is also already like, for me, like an institution, which is super interesting, but also like a very homeopathic, what so-called interventions. Like I was presenting my interview that there is a lot of artists working in archives and with archives, with libraries, and every trace which is left can be somehow, it circulates, it starts to be part of the archive. So I think this is the gap between the material and its future. So this is the space which I think it's interesting, and it can be somehow occupied or rediscovered or rewritten, or yeah. So even a small project or something like archive can be open for many different interventions in the same time. And I believe in very small homeopathic changes, like something what can be only gesture can change the whole planet. I mean, art doesn't change planet, I agree, but the community of art is so big that it is already a big force.
I would like to add a few things here. So I feel that that archives, that the institutions in that sense, their concepts, their kind of way how they became infrastructures, they are supported by tools, and through time, the experts in the field, they kind of help define, they help I don't know, like specify, they conceptualize it in such a way that that the tools are then built, and then these tools automatize what they kind of produced as a knowledge. So these tools are doing a lot of harm in the world, no? Like most of the tools are just there to give more power to already powerful, to the managers, to whatever the ones in power. But at the same time, some of these tools are helping also others outside of that field to get quickly there, or to get into the field quicker than it was before possible. So we have a number of people who are actually, like in many other ways of life, slackers, but they kind of got into many different fields. So they kind of started to produce the knowledge and experience of being maybe always at the beginner's level in all of these fields, but their unique kind of experience and the way how they intervene in the world is kind of very relevant. In that sense, I feel that a lot of artists are doing such a things, and that's why a lot of interesting works are coming from that kind of playful person who is able to do that because of all of that legacy and all of these processes which happened there. So I feel that when we have some, like, I would say my expertise is coming as an amateur of programming. I never had like any formal background in that, but I still feel that what I'm able to do, I really love to do in such a way that others get in, so that others are able to maybe just to do a little bit of a glue, so that some of the tools I know how to do, they will do because I did a little bit of a step or tool to use another tool. So in that sense, that's how we build these things. And yeah, I agree with Agata. I don't think that art or any of these things will change the world in a most relevant way. But even if there will be like a horrible kind of end of the world, I still like the idea that we can share, and we share like a library of, I don't know, like 1 million of books. And we don't need, like, you know, like in some way that moment of escapism will maybe allow us for fighting back or something like that. So in that sense, that's where I feel the power, and I feel that that change is real. It's not really that it doesn't. It's there, you know, like on a USB disk for like $20, you have so many books that you cannot read them for like 7 lives or whatever. Like, I don't know how many lives. So I feel that that's powerful.
While the mic is open, I might add 2 thoughts. I think that in a way, history has become, I mean, it was always contested, but probably over the last couple of decades, certainly since the end of Cold War, history has become a cultural battleground in different places in different ways. You know, here in former Yugoslavia, we've gone through a whole process of revisionism, and there's a tug of war between different interpretations of more recent or more ancient history. And in many ways, tools and the imaginary enabled by tools, i.e. that you can create a collection of your own, has opened up, democratized the space of contesting history based on material evidence. And that has made archives a performative terrain in many ways. And I think in the present, there are many actors contesting that terrain, including art and artists first and foremost. And I think that's a significant historical change wherein we can situate the current return of the topic of archives. That's one thought. Another thought is, I think that at least in what we are trying to do is that this tools-enabled shift is also unfolding in a context where technologies are becoming really distant, that insofar as we use most of the technologies that define our everyday as ignorant users, as users that really have little insight into how technologies of this complexity, entwining really complex, sometimes multinational institutional setups work. And that form of de-skilling is omnipresent. And we think it's part of our responsibility to inject a bit of critical usership that starts from some understanding of how to wield technology to organize collective work and take up the role of an editor, somebody who engages into the syntax, somebody who puts something on Git. This is obviously just a metonymical example of that, but I think a form of upskilling is necessary so that these democratized practices of archiving have some sustainability.
Yeah, and also we as a people, we are being archived through like data and through the platforms, and I wanted to ask something about something Dušan and Arseny, that you both was speaking about similar thing, but like from different perspective. Dušan said something about airwave.org, about the data storage forever, and he said something that there is written save it all, like forever. And in the philosophy of Russian Cosmism, there is this goal, resurrection for all. And I just was thinking about the relation of Russian Cosmism to technologies, and this big like difference between data and the materiality, that in we are more like the technologies are going that way, that everything is data, and like Zuckerberg creating this like metaverse, and if it's not something like similar to like Russian cosmos idea, but just without the materiality. And if we are in the future, will become more and more immaterial, maybe.
I don't know. I might start if Dušan is not ready now to answer. Okay, there is another question about cosmism in contemporary culture from Jana, and I might try to answer all of them all together. So first of all, I forgot to mention at the end of my presentation that, of course, the main interest in cosmism legacy is how it works in current situation with current tendencies. And I guess the importance of cosmism lies in current situation with data and with all these tendencies about collecting as much as possible traces of life, because for cosmism ethics and for further of ethics, this would be super nice implementation of his theory, but for very bad reason, with very bad tasks. And I guess the infrastructure that we have now, I mean, all these data centers, etc., and all these possibilities that they give us are really, really strong. And the main problem that all those mainly work for very few people with very, bad ideas about how to use this power, this knowledge, this data, and this is the main problem. So I guess in case of cosmism and its relation to contemporary situation and the digital archives, in my opinion, cosmism may give us a version of ethics and program for even political interpretation of the situation, because from my position, I guess cosmist answer to the situation would be in searching for alternatives that may change the situation and socialize somehow those archives and may make them accessible and usable for other purposes, like for serving for other our needs, and needs maybe not only humanity but general logic of life in our universe. So I guess this is the main difference of cosmist perspective in relation to what we have in Silicon Valley, where we may find many similar ideas, but with other structural emphases, and this is interesting. So I guess it's of course it's mainly about ethics and about possible ethical solutions of our development in the near future. And as for the cosmism in contemporary culture, I guess I might share with you some fears in relation to current Russian situation, because we have a lot of rumors, and it appeared like even earlier, like 10 years ago, that cosmism became important for Russian power government, for our president, because there are a lot of rumors that around him, a lot of people who try to invest money, insist on him that we must support this ideology, etc., etc. And he even mentioned a common task in his speeches, but mainly in not cosmist context, that, for instance, that business should work together with the government, with the state, and we have a common task in development, Russia, and blah, blah, blah. But of course, all of these things have nothing to do with actual goals of cosmism. And right now, what we're having, like today, we're having 3 lines of development that may be considered in the field of cosmism. So the first one, we have big new investment project and in a state project dedicated to Russian DNA, that like billions of rubles and euros invested into collecting Russian DNA in order to research them and maybe make one or another conclusion in relation to possible weapons or, I don't know, defending structures, etc., etc. But there are a lot of rumors that the main idea is possibly research that could extend that life, mainly life of elites, of course. Then we have this virtual reality, and almost immediately, like several days after presentation of Zuckerberg, our president said that we must elaborate special forces that will defend our avatars and in meta universe, which means possibly again that this is another line for achieving immortality for our elites, this virtual life. And the third is esoteric. There are a lot of esoteric around elites, not related to Christianity as it was in cosmism, but mainly by pagan cults of Siberia, etc., etc. So it's like interesting because it's kind of weird complex of activities. All of them could lead to cosmism or to general frame of extending of life, immortality, etc. And maybe it's more visible in countries like Russia, but I guess very shortly it will be omnipresent in the rest of the world, because we do not have skin, we have only power, yeah, and the rest of the people. So it's very, you know, close connection. And as for the materiality, from perspective of cosmism, I should say that materiality is super important, and cosmists were materialists in their own way, like paradoxical, spiritual materialists, as all maybe Christians. So I guess we may find this even in current situation when people try to elaborate special banks of grains or special banks of I don't know, viruses, etc. So it's like very material things, and even data is material things. So it's not like almost, I don't know, quantum connections, but finally it is. But anyway, we need to have material basement for them. So I wouldn't think about absolutely vanishing of materiality in current situation and in cosmism vision of it.
Thank you, Arseny. You mentioned real great thing, the role of ethics, and I think that this is important in like everyone practice what was presented today, also in Jaro's practice and working with the books and presentation of Native Americans in Karl May's books, and also in the pirate care practice or secondary archive. Do you think somehow about the role of ethics in what you are doing?
Yeah, I think probably in our project it's pretty clear. You know, we work with the framework of disobedience, civil disobedience, and work in that tradition, primarily inspired by actions of Aaron Swartz, who in 2011 downloaded 35 million articles from JSTOR, following up on his his invitation in Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto that people who have access have also the responsibility to share the knowledge that is locked behind paywalls with the rest of the world that doesn't have that access. And that in a way shapes our work and work of many in shadow libraries space. First and foremost, Alexandra Albakian, who has been also a large inspiration for us, and we are really very supportive, as you could see from our custodian's online letter of her work. And the position that she takes in also legal suits brought against Science Hub. So that is sort of the starting ethical framework from which we look at various pirate care practices, and their range of ethical framings is broad. In that sense, they are not homogeneous, they are really heterogeneous. People work from different perspectives, say sea and rescue operations in the Mediterranean, or people assisting migrants on the Balkans route, or elsewhere. You know, I guess the border between Poland and Belarus is currently huge territory of contention over people on the move. They uphold, so people assisting, providing solidarity, they uphold principles that are enshrined in international law. And they are working in a space, ethical space, where there is a friction between migration regimes, mostly designed within a national space or intergovernmental space of European Union, against working against the international law. So their kind of the ethical ground is defined differently. So it varies really, but for us, what's really significant, the practices that we really are keen on mapping are those that are willing to speak up about unjust legal arrangements and laws and executive orders, so that are willing to contest the political status quo as it exists, while at the same time providing immediate support, care, mutual aid. So they have, in that sense, like double investment, ethical investment.
Just very short comment on your question. about the ethic, and I don't know, I'm just speaking from the, so again, position of artist. I'm not a theoretician on ethics, but I just have to say that every gesture you do as an artist, you have to deal with the ethics, like because everything is somehow located somewhere and with some context. So, for example, in the project which I presented here, very short part of it, there is the question of from which position you speak, yeah? Because this is like the question of ethic, like for who you can speak, like for example in the context of Native Americans, but you speak from your own position, how you inherited some kind of ethic and you need to unlearn it or kind of relearn it. So this was the main kind of the main argument for me to do this project, for example, in Goethe-Institut, is that I return back to childhood and to something what I have learned from, and this is my own story. It's, of course, then you start to reveal that this story is so big and there are so many schemas and so many stereotypes you need to kind of go through, but you don't speak for others, you speak for yourself. So I think that this is the starting point. And for me, this is the most important position, that you have to start from the ground, from your own childhood library, from your shelf, which is at home. And when you look at all these books on your shelf, I'm not talking about archive, but about the library, but I think it's very similar. So then there is there is already so many heritage things you have to deal with, and then you can deal with world but when you resolve your own kind of background. So just the question of ethics, what position from you talk about? This is my question. When are you relevant to talk? When you are not relevant to talk?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and that's how I understood your project, that you are like somehow dealing with the past, and how you, when you was reading the books of Karl May in the childhood, and the play on Indians during the childhood, and when you are revisiting, when you are like grown-up artist and with the like different knowledge of it, and somehow you need to deal with it and come to back.
Playing again, you are like erasing the old game, yeah. So it's like reappropriating the same play, but with a totally different kind of set of knowledge. But of course, even using terminology is already a problem, because it's not something what finished. There is a next generation, and this is kind of something what is repeating in time and reproducing itself with all this. So of course, we talk about future and maybe virtual reality and virtual knowledge. But of course, we still have physical libraries and physical archives, and we have still librarians who are not neutral, but they are deciding what is inside the libraries, and they are ordering books. So this is something like physical reality, which is still so much influencing our set of knowledge.
Yeah, and you basically like decolonizing your past somehow, or memory, or
I don't want to use decolonize because this is already, but let's say deconstruct.
Okay.
Like unlearn. This is a good, even in Slovak language, when you use unlearn or naučiť, I think this is a very good, how to say, you have to unlearn all these habits you are using. Even I myself have to say that until very long time, I have been not confident or aware of using so many different stereotypes.
Yeah, that's more precise unlearning. Because
decolonization is, of course, another process which is very I just rather don't want to go to it, because I'm not. Of course, it is in some way. It is part of it, yes, but from very personal perspective, and
we are running almost 5 hours now. Maybe I would wrap it up here, and I would like to thank you, all of you, for such great presentations and for the discussions and everything. I'm really glad that we could be at least online together. It's a pity that it couldn't happen physically, but I hope the next time in Bratislava.
Thank you very much for having us and for hosting this event and for interest in our project.
Thank you.
And thank you all for your presentation. It was very nice to listen to you today.
Thank you, colleagues. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You too.